which is insane to think. So let's get into it. Ascension is going to be the map QiaoGege versus g0rynich.
Okay, we have Ascension 12 o'clock spawn. We have the red Protoss Qiao.
And in the bottom right, we do have the blue Zerg g0rynich. So Ascension, I think we've established, is a pretty decent Protoss map. But Sari, since you're the PvZ expert here, why don't we, just tell us a bit about how do you feel, about this matchup here?
I think it's not terrible for Zerg. I think it's pretty balanced overall. It does slightly favor Protoss later because every single base is a gas base, and Protoss can easily take 4, 5, even 6 bases without really leaving their side of the map. So unlike compared to a map like Aztec, where you have mineral onlys, you have hard to defend bases, Ascension is much more in Protoss's favor. I wouldn't say it's like as P favored as something like Revolver, but I think it's fine for P. P likes this map.
Yeah. Is there any stage of the game where you think Zerg really shines? Is it more in the early game, maybe in the ultra late game, or is this just Protoss throughout?
Late game, I always think Zerg, if they have the mechanics and the execution, late game Zerg is just fearsome on any map, basically, other than Fighting Spirit. So I think late game is where Zerg really shines here. But it looks like we have QiaoGege scouting pretty fast after the pylon. So this is a normal pylon scout, and he's gonna forge expand, which, not gateway expand, but perfectly fine. And g0rynich on his side of the map looks like he's gonna go for an overpull.
Yeah, it is gonna be that forge expand here. So we've seen forge expand quite a bit in the BSL, and we've kind of seen it trend more at the pro level as well. I think Protosses are kind of returning back to the more stable opening. This probe is being really annoying, though. Almost got that kill, but actually g0rynich with the second drone almost got the kill on the probe. So, as Protoss, how do you feel about this? Coming in with the probe, like, you want to keep it alive as long as you can, right? So, but getting the harass off isn't too bad.
That was about 18 seconds delayed on the hatchery, so that's actually huge. And here we have g0rynich going for an overpull and then 6 links. So this is a pretty big investment into links here. It's going to hurt his economy. He actually didn't drone scout either, so he doesn't really know what his opponent is doing. But based on the probe scout timing, I think he'll have a sense that it is just a forge expand. We have a wall, only one cannon. One cannon is not enough, so that's why you see these probes being pulled. And he's gonna be fine, but all he has to do is block the run by here.
Yeah, the Zerglings are making their way there. He does have 3 probes.
Only sees one at the wall. He could have committed there, and it would have bitten him because the other probes would have just come in to block. So that's actually a really high level play there from the Chinese player. Yeah. And looks like we have far net. So this was something I was expecting g0rynich to do because we saw it on Aztec, and 3-player maps are like notoriously good for this kind of style. So already we have something unorthodox.
Yeah, but I feel like it's par for the course. Looking back at g0rynich games, especially last week, we saw his ZVP on full display, and he did tend to like playing this style. So really, it's up to QiaoGege to show us, if he's capable of abusing this, because meta-wise, right, like, it's not as trending at the pro level, and there must be a reason for that. But it is hard to find the proper kind of punish, if you will, for this type of expansion pattern here by g0rynich. But so far, very standard otherwise.
Yeah, so this is g0rynich basically saying, I'm gonna beat you in a late game. And that's a pretty bold statement, but I guess that's where he's most comfortable in. And he did look really strong on Aztec against Boa. But again, gotta mention, this is not Aztec. This is not a map where Protoss is gonna struggle to take expansions. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, well, 2 Zealots coming out here, gonna push back the Zerglings. How do you feel about QiaoGege's opening so far. He hasn't been too aggressive here with the Zealots. I'm guessing he actually, well, his Stargate is actually quite fast, so he went for the core as soon as the gate finished, right? Instead of just pumping Zealots. And now that he has two, he's pushing out, but with very little scouting information.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's just scouting in case this is Hydra. But
Yeah.
I mean, he sees the link speed about to finish. Yeah, they just finished 505. And once you see link speed, you confirm it's not Hydra's end. I mean, he's trading off these zealots. Maybe he'll force Gornets to make a couple more links. One of the weaknesses of far net is that your bases are so far apart. You really need to rely on lings against this kind of movement. And it looks like we found an opening here for the Protoss. Like, there's only one ling here, more lings in the back. If the zealots get across that choke, all of a sudden it's very awkward for Gornets to defend.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's just one gets caught behind, and I mean, Gornets defends here pretty easily. But again, the real threat here, or I mean, what Protoss is trying to accomplish more than direct damage is just to force units.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, for just two Zealots, it's not that big of a deal. He does see kind of the Zerg link count that was, you know, around 8 to 10 lings with link speed. Corsair is out, and you can see actually QiaoGege with the Ser, kind of indicative of his state of mind right now and what he's putting the Zerg on. He's just killing this Overlord. Like, he doesn't feel pressure to go and scout the main right away, so he kind of just assumes that this is most likely a 3-hatch lair type of build. And back at home, I mean, he hasn't even made more cannons. He is going to make a couple of cannons in the main, like one cannon in the main, which is very standard. But so far, man, I mean, Protoss's build seems to be coming along really nicely.
It actually looks very similar to what Boa did, where he went 1 or 2 Sers, low Ser, and then fast speed lot timing. And he's going to put on some pressure again. The goal is never to kill Zerg outright. This is something Gornich is changing here. He's actually going for the additional hatcheries before the creeps, which is actually a huge, I cannot understate how important it is to get that 6 hatch before you add creeps. And I think he's doing this because he killed the early zealots and he feels safe and secure, at least for a few more seconds. And now he's going to get those creeps, going to try to meet that 7:30 timing, and looks like he'll be fine and secure as long as his SimCity is good.
Yeah, we saw Cross yesterday actually just go really hard into those 6 hatchery builds even before their Hydra Den or any of the upgrades. So I think stylistically that's kind of a difference between some of the Zerg players. This time around, Gornich, obviously he got his Spire, but he is progressing his hatchery count up. He's going to have the Sunks in time as well for the Zealot push. Now, do these Zealots have +1? That's really what we want to know. Not yet. So Lings, still a good option to deal with this.
Yeah, and again, when you see the creeps, you've already done your damage. You don't need to commit and throw away your zealots. Looks like he didn't make a ton of Sers, but he is getting +1, which is something I really like in case there are mutas later. Like, having the +1 already done, even if your Ser count is low, is such a big deal. And here we have this SimCity is perfect. Like, you can see the gap here. It's super tiny, easily plugged, and the Zerg player easily defends.
Yeah, so Zerg has defended so far, and Protoss can't really put on any pressure, but he knows this is kind of the turtle setup because he's confirmed a couple Sunks as well as a Spore Colony and just a lot of Lings with an Evo chamber at the front as well. So if you're Protoss here, Sari, like what are you thinking? You know, you're up against Turtle Zerg.
Well, you just take a third here. Basically, Zerg can't really counter pressure you here, and they're content on their 4 bases. They're looking to drone up mostly, and I think Gornich actually spent a lot of gas. And there we are. There are the mutas. So he's gonna go mutas, and then from this he could follow up however he likes. But mutas, he saw a low Ser count, so this is a good play. And now we're gonna probably see more Sers being added to the mix.
Yeah, but like you mentioned, I mean, QiaoGege, he's got that +1 coming on the air, and he already has an Archon, and he has a good distribution of cannons. Actually, you can look at just everything QiaoGege has. It's very well set up. The
oh my
Archon,
god.
Though, absolutely mauling these Mutalisks. Gornich has to be a bit more careful with that, and I think after seeing those Mutas, maybe QiaoGege will start resuming Corsair production, but you can see, I think Zerg is a bit light on drones still, you know, still has to make a couple more workers.
Yeah, you see not full saturation at the natural. I had a second natural. This one has like 16 drones on it. So he never did the transfer you want to do in the early mid game where you get your third hatch set up, but you have no drones there, and you just transfer like 3 or 4.
Is that kind of a drawback from, you know, just playing this style? Because it's hard to just send drones across the map, right?
I think it's something you have the opportunity to do, and it looks like it wasn't +1; it was actually range. So if g0rynich really leans into those mutalisks, it could work out for him. But now we see like he's gonna have to rely on a lot of sunkens to defend, because like the mutas did nothing and they're all badly bruised. It's going into, I think, lurkers now, but the goon push is already at his front. Again, this is not to kill. This is mostly harassment. He's trying to get the hatchery, and if you can also get the evolution chamber here, would be a big boost for his late game potential. He's already up on upgrade, so any more would be huge. It looks like the mutas have enough health now to slightly kite some of these dragoons, but again, it's just too many dragoons here. But actually, they're trading pretty well.
They're actually still trading really well, these mutalisks. They do have +1 carapace actually, which kind of explains how they're withstanding that +1 weapons from the dragoon fire. But what do you think about how g0rynich is playing here, Sari? Because I'm noticing he's not making any any hydras at all. Just laying muta, probably getting his upgrades. But eventually in the late game, we saw Kenzie play with ultralisks earlier in BSL. Okay, he's got lurkers, so I guess that answers my question of what the eventual transition is here. But I mean, how do you get out on the map, right, as Zerg in this position?
Well, normally you go mutas and then follow up with mass hydras, talking like 8-9 hatch hydra, but he's not going for that. He's actually going for a super conservative style. He's actually going to go into super late game with this. So his plan is to catch up on carapace upgrades, go hive, start mixing in cracklings, defilers. Like, he's really not interested in getting out on the map at all for about the 16-minute mark in this game. And I mean, that's how he wants to play this game, and he did seem comfortable against like we see the triple evolution chamber. The hive is a little bit late here. You normally want your dark swarm a little bit faster than this, but look at the hatchery production. He's just playing super safe and secure here. And really, even on even bases, Zerg, if they have hive and they have their upgrades, they're perfectly okay against Protoss.
Yeah, and it looks like Protoss is perfectly okay with just expanding here. I think a lot of Protosses might be getting a bit nervous generally in these types of situations, in that you would see maybe a bit more shuttle play, a bit more trying to bust early, but it looks like QiaoGege, he's okay with just expanding. But you know what I've noticed, actually, his army is really small.
Yeah, and he stayed on 6 gateways. He's going to take his 4th now. I like how he's leaving 1 High Templar at his 3rd in case there's a counter. And I think he also left 1 at his main. This is really good against like a mass muta play. So he's covering that. And I mean, he's going to have 4 bases soon. And soon we're going to see him max out pretty quickly. The thing is, you can't really attack with Gateway Army against this kind of Zerg. You really want to harass, maybe use some shuttles, some reavers, because just Gateway Army is going to struggle to bust sunken lurker spore defense. And we see hive from g0rynich. There's the defiler mount.
Well, what's important here as Protoss, I think, is if you're content with letting Zerg stay on 4 base, just making sure that they don't sneak in too early of a 5th base and, start getting defenses there. So I've noticed QiaoGege, he's kind of rotating from the 3rd natural to the 3rd of this base. You're just making sure there's not an extra base. He's going to poke with goons, but the sunks, kind of keep them at bay for now.
Yeah, now he killed that sunk just so he can poke away at this hatchery, and this is a nice pick off. I mean, it's 13 minutes into the game. Zerg already has like 9 hatcheries. It's not a big deal, but it's not a huge investment of time here. Zerglings trying to take some of the fire. I want to mention that the earlier attack was actually critical because he wasn't able to take out the evolution chamber. So that means g0rynich is not going to be behind on upgrades for like 2-3 minutes. Like, he's only behind 1 upgrade now instead of 2, which is actually pretty huge once Zerglings get cracked.
Yeah, so far I'm impressed though with how QiaoGege is playing, because especially like you're in a tournament, to have just the patience to just kill a little like a small sunk there. to know that you can just range the hatchery after and just getting small incremental advantages like that. It really shows like I think composure, right? So I think mentally he's in a good spot here, but it is getting late into the game. Zerg has been on 4 bases for a while. I think Hive is operational and Crack is online. Plus, the Zergling upgrades look really good. So this is where Protoss really gets tested, man. In all the matchups Protoss have to play, you know, Protoss versus Terran versus Zerg, and all the kind of situations they're put in, I feel like this one is the most kind of mechanically taxing, right?
Yeah, and I'm looking, I only saw, okay, there's a second fort, so that's actually very important because, I mean, against this kind of Zerg play, we did see a 5th being taken by g0rynich. You really want to be, at worst, equal on upgrades. Looks like he's getting here. Swarm is already done. Lurkers under Swarm, but mostly Zealot Army, like he can bust through if he has an upgrade advantage here, but it looks like they're even. And g0rynich can reinforce this quickly. He does have Nidus, there's more Lurkers coming in. Storm on the Lurkers. I mean, this is really close, but that's a lot of Lurkers behind this.
Yeah, but again, look at how small this Protoss army is, and I just, this whole game, he's been kind of roaming around with 4 or 5 Dragoons, nothing too menacing, and Darkstorm gets off, okay, he's gonna bring these back. And I understand staying on like a smaller army to try and expand faster. Here comes the shuttle. Oh my god, he actually killed so many drones. The main has no mining going, and this shuttle is going to kill even more drones with the storm. So, okay, hold that thought. It looks like QiaoGege is actually making some progress here.
Yeah, unfortunately, the 5th is set up, and I mean, killing a lot of drones is actually really nice because what you really want to do against this style is never let Zerg get maxed out. So as long as you keep harassing and keep them on 4 bases, g0rynich is on 5, of course, now. Like, if you harass enough that you eventually stall out their max out timing, if Zerg doesn't max out and their main and natural are already mined out, then it becomes a lot more difficult. And we see he's putting on some pressure, which is nice, but I think the real key here is like the harassment behind this.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I mean, the harassment is so important, especially against this kind of heavy economy style. And, you know, as Protoss, you can definitely afford that when you're on this many bases. One thing about QiaoGege, I've noticed his probe count, I feel like is low, right? It's like maybe at most 60. He does have a lot of bases, but the saturation isn't that great. And I think maybe that's what's, because you can see he's at 170 supply, but doesn't have a bank, right? So he's actually, despite having had so much space in the early game, he's struggling, man, to get maxed. And Zerg's kind of creeping up slowly but surely. Another storm drop coming here. I mean, QiaoGege needs to have these work because honestly, his economy is not that good. Like, you know, 17 minutes into any game, you should have, especially like this type of really slow-paced game, you should have no problem getting maxed. But that being said, QiaoGege does have Reavers now.
Yeah, and these Reavers will be able to shell away at these Lurkers. There's the Observer finally. The key here is, does g0rynich have Plague? Because if he has Plagues, he can easily pick out this. Looks like another Storm Drop. That's actually a huge Storm Drop there. And simultaneously pressuring the new base. This is the most important base on the map now. g0rynich really needs this, although he does have another one at the bottom left side. Like, and that's so many Lurkers.
Yeah, the one thing about g0rynich play so far, I mean, he's been immaculate in his defense. He has nice Dark Swarm timing as well, but he doesn't have a Nidus set up.
That's a huge plague.
That was a huge plague. But unfortunately, without the Nidus, he can't actually reinforce this base at all. And we saw so many Lurkers down at 5 o'clock, or rather 7 o'clock, or whatever, 6 o'clock, that can't really defend. Another Storm Drop going on at the same time. So QiaoGege, despite the fact that he's had a difficult time kind of getting a big army going, I think his harassment has just kind of stretched the Zerg thin, and now he's able to keep the Zerg down on 5 bases.
Yeah, the harassment has been critical here, and I did see actually went for a +1 shield pretty fast, which is nice. Normally you see armor being prioritized, but armor is actually a lot worse than shield in late game because Plague just ignores it. And yeah, I mean, he's roaming across the map. He hasn't lost his army, which is critical. If you ever lose your army as Protoss, you're pretty much boned. in this scenario. But Reaver is still alive. They're plagued. You gotta be careful. Lynx can easily pick them off. Oh! See one Reaver instantly go down, and I mean,
the shuttle goes down too.
Yeah, he wants to push through, but I don't think he realizes how many lurkers are actually here. So he has to be a little bit more patient. Looks like a huge flank of Lynx coming in from behind. I was gonna say one of the problems with going for mass lurker is you can't really reinforce the location that quickly. But if you go Hydro Ling, then it becomes a lot easier to set up flanks and surrounds.
Yeah, g0rynich, however, has not made any Hydralisks this game, just relying on lurker and Lings. The Hydras do have speed upgrades, so presumably they also have range upgrade. They're going to be really good at dealing with Reavers, that's for sure, and eventually, you know, everything else, even Archons. But here comes a Plague, and actually QiaoGege feels confident enough to push in, but there's still a lot of lurkers left over.
Yeah, I don't think he realized there were lurkers in the back as well. I mean, this is a huge lurker field. He's pressuring, though, and he's trading efficiently without committing, which is nice. He already has 5 bases set up. He's going into mass robo style. He needs to keep up his upgrades, and everything's looking very solid for him. g0rynich hasn't been able to cross like 150 supply. We're 20 minutes in, so far, job well done by Protoss, Zerg. I mean, soon the main and natural are going to be mined out, so it's going to be pretty low economy for Zerg. Ooh, and look at this, nice DTs picking off this hatch.
Yeah, QiaoGege kind of strikes me as this, I'm really impressed so far. Like, he's just very composed, very, like, tactical, right? Like, you can see he has good positioning on the map. Like, he has a couple Templars at every base, very defensive, and he only kind of roams around with his small group of units and never kind of lets them get out into harm's way, right? Like, he'll pick off a sunken here and there and then pick off hatcheries. So very calculated play from QiaoGege, and I think the only weakness I can see in his game right now is, again, his economy. Just now, 21 minutes into the game, he's getting close to max. He does have a lot of bank though now, so if he does lose his army, he will be able to fall back on some production. Another shuttle drop comes in, not too effective this one.
Yeah, only managed to get a handful of drones, although it's like 3 or 4 drones. I mean, not the greatest shuttle, but they don't always hit. And just keeping the pressure on, it really keeps Zerg at bay, and you can see like his army, while it doesn't look massive, oh my god, so many lurkers. He's really got to be careful here not to commit. Looks like he's barreling through. It's not a lot of Zealots, and it's mostly Storm Archon Goon, which is surprisingly effective here against all those lurkers. Looks like all the lurkers get cleaned out. And I mean, g0rynich has almost no defense here at this new base.
Those storms were insane. They absolutely blanketed like a control group of lurkers, and g0rynich basically plummeted in supply. He's at 124. He has a huge bank here, struggling to spend it, despite the fact that he has supply as well. Lings are popping out, but 2 Reapers kind of holding firm. Archon's in the back. QiaoGege kind of faltering a bit on his control, not quite getting all of his units into the fight. And it looks like Protoss is also faltering in supply, but it's because he was setting up this double shuttle drop, a Scourge in position, but not going to be able to connect in time. Zealots get dropped off. Oh, there's a DT and a Reaver. So many drones go down, but I mean, this base wasn't really mining too much, but obviously, like, killing the drones is huge, and it looks like g0rynich is going to try and prevent the 6th base from Protoss to go up, but I don't know, man. QiaoGege looks like he's gaining a foothold on this game, but they're both so even in supply, and honestly, Zerg can bring it back at any point, I feel like.
I think that was a drop attempt by g0rynich, but it did scout at least the 6th base.
Oh,
looks
the
like,
shuttle gets picked off.
Yeah, Hydras instantly morph into lurkers after picking out that shuttle. And despite everything, the supplies are actually, like, this is going in g0rynch's favor.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really, I mean, QiaoGege, look, he's not on too many gateways, especially for being this high volume of bases, and QiaoGege clearly, I mean, again, his play has been immaculate, right? In terms of his micro, like his position, like strategically, he's extremely strong, you can tell, but I think his macro is kind of letting him down a bit, and being undersaturated this whole game has been a huge problem. Like, if you have this much space as Protoss, you should be maxed perpetually, right? Like, you should never be dropping down from 200 supply. I mean, g0rynich has not put any pressure on whatsoever, and you can see that Protoss just doesn't even have a bank, so he desperately needs to eventually make more probes, or I feel like g0rynich will eventually maybe start coming back into this game.
Those are some huge storms there, and he does kill this base yet again. And g0rynich main natural are mined up, so we only have the 3 bases on the left side of the map. g0rynich is probably going to want to take 5 o'clock, looks like he's setting that up as well. And, I mean, QiaoGege just needs to keep g0rynich at bay. Like,
Yeah.
sure, you can make a few more probes, but I think as long as he distributes them properly, I think that's the bigger issue. Like his 4th and 5th base have maybe like eight probes apiece. So he's like really faltering there, and I mean he's just keeping the pressure on. And we see now, like he killed that base, he traded effectively. The problem is for g0rynich is like he can't kill this army, and like he just lost all those units for nothing.
Yeah, and QiaoGege is playing a very, very like, again, precise game. Like he's just going around trying to deny bases while he takes his own bases, but as we're getting closer to the later stages of this game, you can see g0rynich has finally established kind of the southern part of the map for himself, and you don't feel too particularly good as Protoss when Zerg gets to take bases like this.
Yeah, and I mean it's gonna be 6 against 6, which is normally you say favors Protoss, but with Hive again, I think it's just about equal. Basically, it's going to come down to the engagements and the tactical play and where they fight. And I mean, g0rynich still has a shot here for sure. That's a nice plague.
That's a fat plague on top of the zealots. The shuttle goes down, but it does unload the Reavers. Archon's in the front, buffering for the rest of the units. Those 2 Reavers are going to be so important here. You know, looks like there's just too much Zerg. The storms were nice though, and he does have like 6 Templar behind this, but just not enough units to buffer for all the AoE damage. So eventually this gets cleaned out, and I mean, looking at QiaoGege, man, he's 120 supply, has a very small bank. I think if he spends everything, he's shooting up back to like 150. But the problem is, if he loses, you know, on one of these tempo swings where Zerg kind of catches up, if he loses one of the bases, I feel like that's gonna start crumbling his position.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't lose any bases, like the problem with losing your army as Protoss is that Zerg can just take all the remaining bases all at once. Like g0rynich, there's nothing keeping him from just taking his 3 o'clock and then the 2 middle bases, and then it's up to Protoss to kill at least 2 of them. And that's the real issue here with losing your army. And you can see g0rynich is setting up lurker fields on these high grounds, and it's going to make him like have his army closer to the middle of the map. Aggressively play Zerg is much more threatening with counters and flanks. So it's starting to look a little bit dicey for the first time for a Protoss player.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it comes down to this economy, dude. I mean, he does get probes there, but I think that's from one of his mined out bases. So the status quo not really changing, really. And you can see this army, despite the fact that QiaoGege has access to 5 gas, I'm not seeing a lot of Archons.
You have a base in now there from the Protoss. Look at these lurkers on the high ground. Like, it's gonna get cleared up, but I mean, just getting a plague on these Reavers is huge for Zerg. I'm surprised at the lack of Hydras. Like, Hydra Plague is one of the strongest combinations in the game, and there we finally do see some more Hydras mixed in.
Yeah, that Reaver control on point though does not lose them, but they are plagued. Here comes a lot of Zerg units to surround this Protoss army. The storms are on point though. The Reavers also connecting decently, but without the AoE now and the lurkers burrowing in a predominantly zealot army, QiaoGege is going to have to pull back here. But again, his army is always looking kind of small. Doesn't quite have that big army that just completely smashes Zerg. And honestly, as this game is progressing, you can see even actually QiaoGege has a lot of supply tied up all over the map, not just in like these defensive Templar, but also like Corsairs and shuttles. So we're getting into the stage of the game where I feel like harassment isn't that important. I think what's important for Protoss is to make sure that Zerg doesn't take a hold of these middle bases, and without a big supply, like army supply, just barreling down through the middle of the map, I think g0rynich will eventually kind of take these maps with Lurker, Darksworn, Plague, or take the bases and kind of whittle out Protoss.
Yeah, it's starting to get scary because Zealots at this stage of the game actually become just buffers. They don't really do damage, and they kind of die quickly if they're plagued, especially the Hydras. And you can see how easily g0rynich cleaned that up after plague, and it's starting to be very difficult for Protoss to even get out on the map. And g0rynich is just advancing further and further with his lurker lines. It allows him to take that base. The other middle base will soon be under his control too, and even the 3 o'clock, he's already taking it. We have g0rynich even on supply, and I mean, now Protoss, like, this is not a favorable scenario. They don't really have enough bases here. You really want to not have Zerg be more than 1 base ahead, and I mean, he's got to do something. But again, look at this, so many lurkers. We have defilers. This is mostly zealots.
Yeah, it is mostly zealots. And it's kind of weird because look, he's not even mining gas from his 5th base. I think his main and his natural is like mined out. Protoss, despite having so many bases for so long, I mean, he does have, you know, he is mining from some of the... Oh, that Nexus is actually misplaced. Like, I just noticed. It's way off to the left.
Yeah, it's only 1 probe on gas there.
Yeah. Well, he is struggling, and really in the ultra late game, you want to have this insane like Archon ball, right? And we only see 3 Archons. Zealots are pretty much dead supply in the late game. They're kind of like filler units. You want to make them to just fill up your supply and have bodies out on the battlefield, but in terms of their efficiency, they're really bad.
Yeah, Zealots, once Zergs are even on upgrades and they have crack, Zerglings are just way more cost efficient. Add into that the fact that there's plague, and these Zealots become like, they go through the grinder when they engage any Zerg units. And we have g0rynich putting on some pressure, and I think really it's all about defender's advantage here for whichever player decides to attack. Like, it's harder to attack in these scenarios, but I mean, the Protoss has to attack, right? Zerg has too many bases.
Yeah, I mean, as the map is getting split here, I think g0rynich is getting the better end of the deal. And, you know, QiaoGege is going to want to renegotiate that pack there, but unfortunately he's making no progress. And again, it's just his army is not that impressive. It's been mostly Zealot Archon. I feel like he's fallen into the trap of being overly harassment based. Here comes g0rynich with a 6 Darkswarm, a lot of lurkers burrowed, so these zealots taking so much damage, but actually lurkers do get cleaned up. The Nexus still stands. Reaver's coming in, but here is another wave of Zerg just getting on top of all of the Protoss units. The Reavers, though, connecting with some 6 shots. You can see g0rynich using his APM, just rallying in all the units. And look at his map, man. He just sees everything on his side of the map. He has so much stuff everywhere, spending all his money, running out of some resources here. So, you know, he's going to be having to redistribute some of that drone count.
Yeah, I mean, this is critical. If Protoss loses this base, it's basically GG. g0rynich really actually overextended, I think, a little bit there, but we have all the Reavers plagued, and while the supply isn't Protoss's favor now, remember, this is a mostly plagued army, and it's going to be a very healthy Zerg. We are working towards that giant ball of splash from Protoss, which is actually huge. And we don't actually have any lurkers here quite yet. So this could be the moment for Protoss to get out on the map and put on some pressure. Maybe deny a base here.
Yeah. Well, Protoss is... I don't know what just happened, but g0rynich, I think, was a bit too eager, a bit too aggressive. I think he should have used the space that he had to just... You know, because we saw most of his drones are, like, tied up in bases that are mined out. And only now is he trying to resaturate. I think had he resaturated the new bases and then went for an attack, he would have had way more supply to follow this up. Now, here comes a lot of Zerg units, but really just not enough. And the Reavers, the Archons, finally, this is the kind of composition you want to see later on in the game. And QiaoGege, man, he's steadfast, man, and now he's just pushing through the middle of the map, doing what he needed to do to win the game.
Yeah, he Reaver crawled all these 6 Reavers, only 2 now left. You can see 25 kills on that one, 10 on this one. And Reavers are going to get picked off, but this is a lot of remaining Archons. The base does die for g0rynich. We only have Lings where you see g0rynich struggling to spend his gas, not a lot of defilers, not a lot of lurker support, just pure Ling here.
Yeah, mass crackling. coming in, but when you have like 50 Archons, these, especially +3 Archons, just one-shot Lings, so they're super efficient late game. And you really need a bit more. g0rynich has a huge gas bank, just can't really spend it because he doesn't have the mineral income. And now Protoss, I mean, Protoss is max, Zerg is under 100 supply. GG g0rynich. Game number 2 here, Aztec. g0rynich has to win to stay in the series. Let's see if he can do it.
All right, in the 8 o'clock spawn, we have our blue Protoss Chow.
And 12 o'clock, we do have g0rynich in the red Zerg.
So, Aztec. One thing I forgot to mention on Ascension is that your main has 10 patches, your natural has 8. And that's actually a huge boost to the Protoss economy in the early game.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why it's pretty good Protoss map. Aztec, when most, I wouldn't say this is an old school map, but I would say maps that came out towards the end of StarCraft era, just before StarCraft 2 came out, they were always 9 in the main, 7 at the natural, and then 8 at the gas thirds, kind of like Fighting Spirit. Those maps were the standard for a very long time. Now we're seeing some 10-8 maps, kind of like Longinus actually way back when. And these always favored like the races that expend less.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Zerg always has more access to mineral patches, and you can tell Aztec is an old map because basically nowadays map makers don't really expose the mineral field like it is at 12 o'clock. If Aztec were to be remade like in 2021, right, basically for sure these minerals would be on the top side.
Kind of like Sylphid.
Yeah, or Ascension, or any other of these new 3-player maps. But I think at the time, map makers didn't actually know how to make the workers spawn at the top side, right? So it was actually a huge disadvantage.
Oh my god!
Like
the game's over. The game's over. It's 9 pool against Nexus first, so huge gamble from our Protoss player, and I mean he's gonna scout it in time, but he can't do anything in response to this build. Unfortunate.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, maybe if Chow gets a God Pro pool, he might live. But this is going to be really hard. Okay, we're getting the graphic instead. Prepare for battle, but I think the battle's already started, dude. Zerglings are out. We'll have to see. I mean, that being said,
look at
the rush distance, dude.
I mean, he has to. Is he gonna block the lower ramp?
Yeah, he needs a gate. Do you think he needs a gate here or a second cannon? I feel like he needs a gate, and he needs to just like the gate just to have a hole, right? Like a small choke.
Oh my god, he scouts wrong.
Oh, he can't know.
Wait, how did he scout wrong? He saw the Overlord. What did I miss here? Oh, he's dead.
Yeah, that was kind of a misplay. Here come the Lings, though. He does spot them, but they're gonna surround these cannons.
It's over. What did I miss? I don't understand. He saw the Overlord.
Oh, he just instantly canceled that. And now he's going to fight with the probes. And it's all about how this probe engagement goes. I mean, this is really bad for Protoss. 3 probes go down so far. 4 probes, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Geez.
All right, in the top left, we have Chow. Blue Protoss.
And in the top right, do have g0rynich and the red Zerg.
If I remember correctly, g0rynich played Boa twice on this map, and both times he went for, or maybe not both times, well, at least one time he went for 3-hatch Hydra, and neither time did he go for far natural.
Yeah, that is true. I think on this map, I mean, you could go far nat, especially if you get opposite side spawn, right? Like if you're not on the same kind of high ground area. But here, far nat to the bottom right, I mean, it could work.
It looks like we're gonna have gateway from our Protoss player, not going out for that scout. And he has done something different, at least in all 3 openers. He went forward, he went Nexus, and now he's going gate first. He's really mixing it up. g0rynich went for overpool, then a 9 pool, and looks like we're gonna have another Overlord. Nope, he's actually that's the Overlord there. So we still don't know.
Yeah, it looks like gate first here, and with this wall, very interesting decision. I think that's a much more aggressive way to open here for Chow, right? But I think it makes sense. I guess if you go Forge Expand, you want to just block and the probe there is checking for the Overlord, so now Chow's gonna go top right. So this game not messing up his scouting pattern. But yeah, as far as the wall is concerned, I guess like if you're opening gate first, you want to do this pylon gate wall. It makes more sense because you have more mobility with your zealots. But if you open Forge, you can just do the link tight Forge gate. So Chow's going to be aggressive. Generally, this is the one map, though, that, especially at the pro level, you actually see a lot of Forge expanding. So going for a gate expand here, a bit unconventional, but he is going to get the first scout, and it is against 12 hatch, so the Zealot does have some room. Or that was actually an 11 hatch.
11 hatch, so slightly faster hatch, slightly faster pool, and this is going to be good against the gate first opener. And we have Protoss, who luckily does actually get the first scout in. Let's see how he follows this up. Looks like the first zealot already heading out. And will g0rynich actually go far nat against gateway? And I mean, it would be a little bit risky to do so, but we'll see.
Well,
Overlord sees the zealot coming.
It's very weird here for Zerg to decide on a third base because you can't take your natural third base. That would be from where the zealot is coming. So yeah, it looks like he is going to have a far nat again this game, but gateway first, zealots are going to be able to pressure the map very well, especially if Chow catches wind. He actually decides against moving into the main with that zealot.
Yeah, this isn't.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, this isn't a map like Sylphid, Finding Spirit, where you can get your zealot right behind the natural, and then only one Zergling can engage it at a time. The area behind the natural is actually too large for that, so I can see why he just retreated, and he's gonna save that zealot. He's scouting for the third now, and he's gonna see the far net, and I wonder if that changes what his game plan is. Is going to be more aggressive as a result. We actually see him no Forge yet. He's gonna go for the ultra greedy and style, and as long as he keeps his probe alive, he can get away with it.
Yeah, but without that cannon, without the Forge, I feel like this is going to be a bit tricky for Chow in that if he ever does decide to, and he's not going to, but I was going to say, if he ever does decide to try and pressure the bottom right far natural with these zealots, he'd be wide open to a counterattack. But without having to get that Forge, like you mentioned, Sari, his core is insanely fast, especially for a gateway opener. So he is going to be able to put on pressure with an early Corsair.
Yeah, we have Lair from g0rynich, and no Lings being in production. He just got in. Protoss has no Forge or cannon. So let's see how he responds. Looks like he's just playing standard. There's the Forge now, but the Spire is going to be so late compared to the Stargate timing. This is starting to look a little bit scary. Like, this is going to be several Overlord losses if it goes Lair into Spire.
What is that? That's actually
a Citadel.
Well, what do you think about this, Sari? I don't like this.
No, I don't. I mean,
I don't really understand. Why would you rush core to get a Citadel?
Yeah, and he sees everything.
Yeah, I get that the Stargate, like he's missing a couple probes as well. I get that one of the function of the Corsairs is obviously to scout. So when you have perfect information like this, you might think, well, I don't need this Corsair. But if you're gonna rush your core, like if the whole build was, I'm skipping Forge to get core out fast, the problem with getting a really early core is that you can't get a second gas that early to match because you just don't have the economy for it. And any other follow-up to the core it's either Stargate or Templar Archives, right? Because the Citadel alone, like, you would expect someone rushing a Citadel to get +1 first, because it's just so much stronger to have +1 Zealots, right? So, I don't know, man. I'm not really a fan of this. I feel like if the Corsair was already out killing Overlords, he'd be in a better spot.
If he had gone Corsair, we'd be talking about 2 Corsairs out, and the Spire is like 70% done. And we're talking about several Overlord losses, slowing down the Zerg economy. So don't really understand what he's going for. Looks like it's just going to be mass speed lock. We have additional gateways going down. But again, the +1 is not going to be that fast. It's just going to be speed lots, and Lings can trade effectively against +0 speed lots. And I mean, g0rynich saw 6 minutes. There's still no what's it called? There's no Corsair. This has to be Citadel first, so he's definitely gonna make some mutas here.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the drawback. I mean, you know, Spire is always a threat. That's why Corsairs are so good in this matchup, like as a default opener, as a standard opener, because you want to have that strong anti-air to just dissuade Zerg from using Mutalisks. But here comes the push out. That's a lot of Zealots. They're not +1 upgraded though, so g0rynich is going to feel comfortable just defending with Lings. Ooh, the timing, the anti-timing there from Zerg actually just misses these Zealots, and the Sunks aren't ready. But without +1 also, the Zealots are not going to do that much damage to the creep colonies. They do get a full surround off. The Lings are really far back. Don't quite engage the Zealots as fast as they could. Sunk does finish. These Zealots, man, they're going to put in a tremendous amount of work. And oh my god, the Chow find a sick timing here. Control group of Zealots just wide walking into the main from Zerg. This Spire is exposed.
Yeah, and even without +1, there's just so many Zealots. And unfortunately, g0rynich wall was not good. Nothing to plug the gaps, and they just got around the sunken. Even though he's probably not going to die here, he's going to take a lot of damage. Like, you can see more Zealots rounding in across the map. And I finally got a sense of what Protoss build this actually is. And it's actually Zealot timing followed by Archon. But it looks like he's trying to end the game here with just pure Zealots. Zealots targeting the lair, not the best target. You really want to kill drones here. There has too much HP. Looks like some Zealots getting on top of the drones. Mutas are out, but there's no Spire, so there's no threat of more Mutas, which is actually great for Protoss. And I think even though he loses like something like 13 Zealots, like this is so much damage done.
There's no way this isn't double Stargate follow-up, though. I feel like double Stargate would just absolutely end the game. Okay, it's not. You're right. He is going to go for Archons instead. He's got those DTs out, so he is going to make a Dark Archon as well, I think. Or maybe they're just going to run around the map, but he's going to have to deal with these Mutas. The problem is, honestly, Protoss just has such a huge lead. Zerg has no economy, man. I don't think it even matters at this point what Protoss does. I mean, he could probably attack with probes and win.
I'm surprised this isn't a 2 Archon follow-up, because that would be, I mean, this probably kills either way because it's +1 Zealots now and it's only Zerglings and Mutas. There's no Sunken, there's no Hydras. This is probably enough. Even with like great micro here, even if you pick off the Archon, the Mutas don't have enough DPS to deal with the Zealots, and I mean, that's GG. Quick game number 3, and